Okay. Well, my question being that talk a little bit about your dating experiences in high school, and
Oh, no, come on,
maybe
fella.
maybe tell us about the first girl that you
Well,
kissed.
you
Or
get ready to tell me about your enamours.
I'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I'll bet when this isn't on. Yeah.
Well, it's long past now. You have nothing to be
Yeah.
ashamed of.
Well, I
Anymore.
haven't anything to be ashamed of. I'll tell you, whatever I did was all the kids did. You know, I was no different than anybody else. Uh,
Well,
but
for one thing, just um, well, go ahead. Tell us about your first few experiences, and maybe you could even go back before high school. I mean, maybe you started. Maybe your first kiss was before high school.
yeah, I think it was. Come to think about it.
Don't brag.
Uh, but anyhow, the I was sweet. I was real in J.B. Young Intermediate School. I was really sweet on a gal that lived in homeroom, just 2 seats over from me, by the name of Alice Whitting, and she was a cute little doll, I'll tell you that. And I don't know whether she was as enamored with me as I was with her. However, we passed notes back and forth and so forth, and walked together in the hallway and things like that. And that went on for a while, but we were a little too young to date yet in those days, you know. So our high school experiences together was the only thing we had. But the reason I bring her up is that she later became my cousin-in-law. She was down at the Coliseum one night dancing. She came down there regularly. And I'd wave at her, you know, and she'd wave at me. And when we were playing at the Coliseum, we played there often. It was the biggest ballroom in the Tri-Cities, and it was a great place, wonderful place to sit. We played in a great big shell, if you know what I mean. Looked like a shell. And they had the big bands down there. We were really getting into pretty big time when we played there. And we had it as a steady place. We'd play in there probably. They were open about 3 nights a week, and we'd at least one of those we'd be there. And Alice would be there. And Walt Anthony, my cousin, Bill and Walt Anthony. Bill was a piano player. Remember, I mentioned him. And in the meantime, we were picking up more musicians, and Walt Anthony had been learning trumpet and had become pretty good at it. So Walt got a job on the band as a second trumpet. So he was working on the band, and one night he noticed that gal waving at me. He said, "Geez, boy, you really know the dolls, don't you? She's pretty cute." And I says, "You want to meet her?" "Yeah, yeah." I said, "What's it worth to you?" And I ribbed him like, "Well, $5, you know." Finally, I thought, forget it. I'll introduce you to her. So anyhow, I called her up there to the bandstand, and I said, "One of our guys wants to meet you." And I told Walt to come out. Walt shook hands and said hi and so forth. And later on at intermission, I guess he made arrangements to meet her at intermission. So anyhow, at intermission, they got a little closer together, you know, and got to know each other and made a date, things like that. They married. And they've been out here, they spent a pretty good portion of their life while they were raising their family here in Phoenix. They had to come out here because one of the kids had asthma or something like that, some lung disorder. So go to Phoenix. That was the thing in the old days because Phoenix was supposed to represent clear air. So they came here. And Walt had a band, one of the good bands in Phoenix for quite a long time here, in addition to selling ads for the Republic newspaper. And later on he went over to California. A guy that he knew, a real good friend that he knew here, went over and went to work for Hughes Aircraft. And after he got over there, he found a job was open that he thought he could get Walt in there, and he did get Walt in there. And it was a good job, a real good job. I mean, it was an executive position. It developed into an executive position. Of course, Walt had a lot of talent, and he had a great personality. So it didn't surprise me that he went up the ladder pretty well down there, over there. And he retired from there, and he had to have a lung taken out. He was a heavy smoker. And then, of course, he quit. But anyhow, then they moved back over here after they retired. They moved back over here again. And Alice just died this year. She just passed away.
Wow.
She had a lot of ailments, and is a good gal. Walt's still here.
Really?
Yeah, I see him once in a while. I go out there and see him. He's very, very hard of hearing. I think I'm bad, but he's pretty bad. But anyhow, what did we get off of?
Well, since you brought it up, I'll say this and then we'll go back to that. That's some of the things, if there's still people like that, I wouldn't mind you maybe taking your video camera and talking to some of these people, you talking to them. Like set up your camera like I set up
Yeah, I know.
us,
Yeah.
and you talk to them like I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
Whenever.
Well, fine. Walt,
Whenever if you have time.
that'd be a little difficult with Walt because I couldn't convey to him while the machine's running because I'd have to shout to him, see. Well, it isn't so much shouting, it's enunciating. When I talk to Walt, I got to talk like this with my voice up and very distinctly. And he usually catches me then.
Can he still talk back though?
Oh, yeah,
It's
nothing
just-
wrong
it's
with
just
his
his
talking. It's just his hearing. Oh, sure, he's got a good sense of humor. He's a nice,
Well, he'd be
nice
good
guy
to
to
talk
visit.
to.
Well,
Maybe I'll have to come along. Do you think?
well,
better.
might be a good idea. It'd
Because
be,
then
to
you
have the two
can-
of us talk together. That's
Yeah,
not a
and
bad
then
idea.
We could have him mic'd or both of you mic'd.
Yeah,
And that way.
yeah,
And I'll just be sitting there, and you just talk to him, and
Yeah.
I won't even say anything.
okay.
I'll just be.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to him and see what he thinks. He might be a little embarrassed about the hearing deal because he'll know that it's obvious if a camera's on that I have to really enunciate to him to get him to hear it, you know.
Well, just sit, you guys. You can sit on his lap.
What I could do, I could give him like you do. You give me something to start on, and I go on for 45 minutes
Yeah.
about it. So that might be the same way with Walt.
Yeah. Well, and just let him know that. Just tell him, I'll just ask you a general question.
Key question.
And just talk everything you know about
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
kind of thing.
All right, good.
And then he'll just be talking.
I think he'd like that. I think he'd like that.
Well, that'd be great.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Well,
So,
getting back to, you're talking about girls, and Alice was the first girl
oh yeah.
you were
Yeah.
kind of enamored with.
Well, I don't know that she was the first. You bring up some crazy things, you know that? The
Good.
first girl I was enamored with was a girl who lived across the street from my grandmother and granddad up on 13th Street. Her name was Emma. And she was not particularly good-looking girl, and she was a little heavy. But she was the first girl that I really looked at as a girl. You know, maybe the first time, you know how boys are, the girl, yeah, until they get to a certain age, and you know, it all changes all of a sudden. And she came along, she was there at the time that I went to the stage, see? And so I remember I took her, oh brother, I took her to a theater one Sunday afternoon. I told her I'd take her to a show, asked her whether she'd go to a show, and she did. So we went downtown, walked downtown. Don't ask me where I got the money, but I had it. I guess I was working for Gramp. And we went down the show, and I remember I wanted to put my arm around her, you know, and I'm sneaky, going like this, you know. And finally I get the thing up around her, you know, oh gosh, this is great. And and my arm starts going to sleep. And I don't know whether I should take it off. How can I get the thing down? You know, you're so careful, you know, when you're out with a girl for the first time to do everything right, you know. And so I hear this thing driving me crazy. So finally I just gusto, I pull the thing back. Anyhow, then we walked home, and I kissed her in the shed out back to their house.
How did you end up in the shed?
Like, because we didn't want all the neighbors to see us. And the shed was convenient. And anyhow, I went over and played some games with her and her family, father, mother too, over there at her house. But that didn't last too long. That was just my first puppy love experience.
How old were you?
Oh, I don't know, 15, something like that. And let me see, the Pearl Johnson in high school, I went with her. And I don't know what I can tell you about this. This is private, fella.
It was a long time ago.
There's a lot of things I probably don't want certain people to hear.